that concludes the questions that were submitted in advance, as well as several from the audience. If there's any others that you'd like to ask, by all means, come forward and we'll see if we can get them addressed.
One more question about the transfers. If the kids that were going to Ford City now are going to go back to Allerton, it's not going to be a transfer. So I'm confused on whenever they did transfer, they're not allowed to play sports for 1 year. Is that correct? Is that also band members and cheerleaders and stuff like that? Or if they're a transfer person, they're not allowed to play anything in any activities for a year? And then the ones that are going to go back to Allerton, if that's not going to be a transfer because they're supposed to go there, they'll be allowed to play sports. Is that correct?
I'm pretty sure that's the way it works.
Yeah, I don't think they're considering it to be, if they're at Ford City now, and they're gonna have to go back to Elderton, the way they're looking at it is that that's not a transfer, that's their attendance area. I wouldn't think that they'd be held up in participating in any activities because of that.
I think the
kids that want to stay at Ford City.
Yeah, are they going to have to wait a year to play?
No, because they've already
transferred. They've already were there. So
okay, how about on the new transfer, he can't play sports for a year if it goes through?
Yeah, new transfers.
So what's...
If your child is currently
what I'm
at...
trying to say? Like what they're going to have, why could that kid that's not a transfer? I mean, I understand
There's some conflict with what you're trying to say there as far as the sports. The extracurriculars, I don't believe there's a problem. I don't believe so.
Okay.
They can play. It gets into the WPIAL with the sports, and if you transfer because of sports, I think you're withheld for a year.
From playing sports?
Yeah, because
you practice with them, but not
you
play
made
on
the transfer for the reason of sports.
Yeah,
the team wanted you there, but I don't believe that they haven't done that before. I don't think that those kids were withheld from sports because it just wasn't the reason why they made the transfer. So they were included. There were, I'm trying to think of an incident one time that, one child attended one high school but wished to play on the team in another high school. That was denied. WPAO didn't allow that. They had to go to that school to play. There's some rules in with the sports that kind of limit that thing, but I don't think it's something. If it's going to be something that it's going to affect you, then I would get a good answer on it.
Excuse me. For every rule that there is, it can always be broken, and I know of at least 3 examples of students who chose to transfer to another school in the district pertaining to sports, and they were never denied the right, or they weren't denied the right to play the sport. They did not have to sit out a year. So I would imagine that you could probably...
didn't follow the rule. They weren't
well,
a year.
That policy was rewritten in 2008. So I don't know does anybody know what the revision was?
It says that you have to be abstained from any sports for a year.
Right, but I don't know if that's what was added in 2008.
When they've all the transfers have been approved as long as I've been on the board, which was 2 years. And the reason, it does have a reasons given, a real very brief description of it, and I don't remember ever seeing one with sports in the 2 years that was the reason. So, Jan, if those rules were broken prior to that, I don't know how recent you're aware of that situation, but
one not so recent. I mean, I'm going to say within like the last 6 years. I'm sorry. Another one probably in the last year and a half.
Okay. I wrote. This is another one of those. It's a very, very good question, and it needs to be asked in public with all the other board members so that the public has all the information they need. Obviously, there's a concern out there, so I don't think we know the definite answer here, but we'll make sure it's asked and answered.
Generally, when the WPIL denies transfers and make kids sit out for a year, that's between districts. For example, if a student went from the Kiski Area School District to the Apollo Ridge School District, and Kiski Area felt that it was for athletic intent, they can protest to the WPIL, in which case there's a hearing, and then the family in Apollo Ridge has to demonstrate that it's not athletic intent. And then it can go to the PIAA. In the case of Armstrong School District, it's had an open policy since its existence. So in that case, the Armstrong School District would have to tell on itself, which would be kind of funny to do so. So when you have an open transfer policy, which has been going on, and athletes have been transferring, whether that's athletic intent or babysitting services or whatever have you, or closeness of schools, I think it would be hard pressed for a principal in another school in this district to make a protest to one of his fellow colleagues to the WPIL, and furthermore the WPIL to deny that transfer since it's an open transfer policy. And then the question was, do you have to put the reason on that paper? Well, if the reason on that paper is because School X has Spanish 5 and School Y doesn't, then that's a good reason and improved curriculum, whether that's the true intent or not.
See questions back there?
It was August 24th, 2009 that it was revised. So,
When was it again?
August 24th, 2009, so it was just fairly recently.
This should have been seen like last year too, that there were kids from Pine Township and Rayburn that transferred to Wexamokin. They weren't withheld from sports and activities.
Correct.
That's happened, so I don't see why it would happen again.
I agree.
Because these kids are already going to Ford City or Wexamokin now, they're putting in a transfer, they're staying at the same school they were at last year.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I can't remember it ever happening before, Mr. Ford, right, what he said.
I want to thank you three for showing up today, and I want to ask Heart Act people, were all the school board members invited to be here to
Yes.
this open caucus today?
Yes, they were.
They were, and I know I can speak personally since I did send an invite out to the directors that are for Ford City. I only received one response, and it was not a very kind response either. So I do want to thank the three of you for being here today as well.
And thank Joe for the idea.
One thing,
Not Joe, Jim.
one thing too, with inviting everybody, just so everybody knows, that we couldn't have had a meeting here with 5. So if 2 more would have shown up anyway, said they were coming, it would have had to been an advertised meeting with
Sunshine.
right. So we would have had to have done something a little differently if we'd have had more requests.
But we'll gladly sponsor.
But we will gladly offer the same opportunity to any of the attendance areas. If you guys wanted to do this again another time, maybe after further discussions and further board meetings, that would be great. If any of the other board directors would like to have a meeting in their area as well, or the same offer goes to any constituent that wants to ask their director to please hold a meeting in their area. We will gladly, as a group, try to find the appropriate location, a good time for everybody. They need to get in touch with you guys. People need to talk to their directors. It boils down to that.